Hey guys, this is Craig, and today I'm going to talk about something that's might seem a little bit crazy, but I've had psychic experiences over the years, and I'm a non-visualizer. I didn't even know people saw things in their heads, but my uh, I hear nuances in sound that some people, well, most people don't hear, I guess. Uh, the only time I've ever had dreams that I've actually seen, have been prophetic dreams where uh, it shows me the future. And I remember when I got into metal detecting, uh, I'd been in it for a couple of years, and I was hearing about a guy that he was a black man from Mississippi, and his name was John Jackson, and he was psychic, and he was also a Delta blues player who had several albums, and he toured Europe, and his favorite audience over there was in Germany, and so I was. I heard about a spot coming open in Manassas, in a bulldoze spot. So I drove up there, and I was talking to some people, and I was looking around, and I saw this guy, and I was thinking, wow, I'd love to talk to that guy. And so about maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, I saw him walking toward me, and he had this big smile on his face. And he came up to me and he said, "I can see your aura." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "People have told me I have a yellow aura." And he goes, "Yeah, it's very unusual." And so uh, he was telling me, some stories about, uh, you know, how people would, he'd be out hunting, and people would come up to him, and he'd be digging all kinds of stuff, and they couldn't find anything. So he would like look around the area and then point out an area where they would probably dig stuff. And he could basically see the soldiers from the past, in these places, he told me. And he had several bushel baskets full of Confederate and Yankee belt buckles. It was unbelievable, the stuff this guy found over the years. The other thing was he used a Garrett groundhog, which was kind of an older machine, even back in the 90s, early 90s, and he uh, he didn't hunt with the coil flat on the ground. He hunted it on the edge, and so he swept with the coil perpendicular to the ground, and he would get signals that way. I think he used it more like a divining rod myself, but guy was just amazing, and he ended up dying. I guess he was in his 70s, and all his friends were white. It was amazing, and they used to go over to his house a lot. I wish I'd gone over there. I'd never heard about this until later, but he used to put on. He used to tell stories, and then he would whip out his guitar and his banjo and play songs for everybody. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I've had over the years, I'll probably talk about it in a later video, but I've had what I think are soldiers telling me where to dig stuff. And I believe that people from the past want me to find their lost items. And I've had them tell me in dreams where, things are. And one of the wildest ones I ever had was I was looking for the 4th Texas camp, and my friend had been there, and Mike O'Donnell, who was the historian, and he wrote a lot of books and on relics and stuff, and I knew him pretty well, but he didn't. didn't like me too much because I was always out digging him and stuff, and I never sold anything. I always, I've kept everything I've found over the years, and he tended to sell most of what he found, and so he'd been taking guys that I knew to this Fourth Texas camp, and I'd asked one of my friends about it, and he said, "Man, it was so far back in the woods, it was unbelievable." And he said, it was good. He said, "I stayed near him the whole time because I was so afraid of getting lost." And so I always have been an avid reader, um, and had this one book by Howard Crouch, who was a relic hunter, and in the book there was an area where he was showing the camps from the Texas Brigade, and one of them was the Fourth Texas. It was the Fifth Texas, Fourth, Fifth, might have been another one. I'm not sure. And then probably about a mile and a half away was the 18th Georgia, which I'll talk about later on. And I also, in Howard Crouch mentioned in his book that the camp was, there was a power line going next to the camp. And so I was reading this book, and I saw this. There was a cartologist, I guess. He was a map maker for the Union Army, and he went up in a balloon on the Potomac. And this area was between Nabasco Creek and Austin Run, and vast set of woods. And it went down to a peninsula that went all the way to the Potomac River. And it was also in that same area was a tavern, I believe, but it was called the Wright House, and I've had no luck really, researching much about it. They've kind of, from what I hear, they've kind of hidden a lot of it, or they don't give out the information they had, but it was a rich area, and it was colonial, probably dated back to 1700. And there was another house or mansion up on the other side of Nabasco Creek, right over the Potomac, that George Washington's attaché had been there. He would that was his house, and so anyway, I had this dream one night, and I was up on this. Well, I'll tell you how I found the place first. I decided that I would one day when I was coming back from Stafford County hunting, I decided to try to find where these power lines might be, and saw this school, and across from it was a power line going up the hill. And according to the book that I read, I could, the guy showed where the Fourth Texas was, and so I decided I was going to go up there that weekend and hunt. And a friend of my brother's wanted to get into metal detecting, and so I had a Nautilus, and I gave him a White's Eagle Spectrum that I'd bought, and he ended up buying it. But we went up I climbed the hill up there, and it was a real steep ridges going up through the power lines. And this guy was kind of, he was getting upset because he was getting so tired going up these hills, and it didn't bother me a bit because I was a track star and a tennis guy. And so we get up to the top, and so I'm looking around, and I kind of look to the west, and I see this big grove of cedar trees, and the cedar trees were so big around that you couldn't squeeze between them. And I looked at my friend, well, the guy that was with me, and I said, you know, there's a colonial house site up on top of that hill. And he goes, I don't see any house. And I said, I see those trees. And it turned out I was right. You know, people back then used to grow trees for, it was very valuable for wood, and like cedar trees are good for keeping bugs away. They line chests and stuff with them. And, you know, they would, a lot of these farms, they had to have wood because they couldn't, you know, they couldn't last through the winter if they didn't have wood to burn, you know, to keep warm and to cook with. So anyway, I saw a path going down the hill, and then it led into this little square area, and when I was going across it, it was just covered in nails, and it was just, I was going crazy. And so right toward, you know, I was hunting along, and I finally got a discriminating signal. I got two of them next to each other, and they were both infield bullets, and it was like a 57.7 caliber smooth bore. I mean, it was a the bullet itself wasn't like a three ringer; it was just completely smooth, and they had a boxwood plug in the bottom of the hole, and when they fired it, the boxwood plug would expand the lead against the rifling to make it spin, and it was the finest. Infield rifles were British; they were the finest rifles in the world at the time. And so, and they also in the bottom had 57 in them, and I've seen others that had other numbers and symbols and stuff in them, but all the ones at this place were 57. So I knew I was in the right spot, and so that was, you know, one of the spots where I had, you know, later on I had a psychic experience, and but I'll go into that later. I may talk about that tomorrow. But what do you guys think? You ever had any experiences like that? It's pretty awesome if you do. You know, it makes you wonder, you know, about things. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later.